As the United States government's lead law enforcement agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation is headquartered in Washington, D.C. It operates 56 field offices in major U.S. metropolitan areas and Puerto Rico. There are 60 FBI legal attachés, or legats, operating at U.S. embassies in countries around the world. There are more than 250 smaller FBI satellite offices. The FBI's jurisdiction extends to federal criminal laws in more than 200 areas. These include cybercrime, money laundering and organized crime, terrorism, sabotage, and treason. The Bureau is the principal lead agency responsible for counterintelligence and is represented on the Intelligence Board of the President's National Security Council. Through its Uniform Crime Reporting Program, the Bureau annually publishes a comprehensive summary of criminal activity in the United States with a specific report on hate crimes. The Director, Deputy Director, and Associate Deputy Director are the three principal FBI officials responsible for managing the FBI's mission portfolio, direct employee workforce of 36,000, and a budget approaching $10 billion annually.
So we have with us now Mr. Darren Jones, who was appointed as the Executive Assistant Director of the FBI's Science and Technology Branch. He reports directly into the Deputy Director of the FBI. Darren, thank you for coming. Please welcome Mr. Darren Jones. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, Barry. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, as the case may be. As Barry said, I'm not Jeff Salette, and I feel like a professional investigator. I need to just set the record straight right away. There's absolutely not a shred of evidence that I pushed him down those stairs just so I could take his place here today. All kidding aside, Jeff sends his regards. He very much wanted to be here today, but I would be lying if I didn't say that I'm absolutely thrilled to be here talking to this group. Very pleased to be here in person to address this cross-section of government and technology industry. I'm aware most of the attendees today work primarily in the digital realm, and I will spend most of my time in that space today. But please know that the Science and Technology branch of the FBI covers a huge range and a broad spectrum of technology. The FBI Science and Technology programs include DNA science, including rapid DNA technology, forensic chemistry, pattern analysis, and state-of-the-art crime scene management, led by the FBI in Quantico, Virginia. FBI S&T programs led by the Operational Technology Division, also at Quantico, include such things as highly specialized audio and video surveillance technologies and forensic services, as well as C&E capabilities. Iris and facial recognition services are provided through our Next Generation Identification Program, led by our Criminal Justice Information Services Division in Clarksburg, West Virginia. And CJIS also manages the nation's fingerprint repository. As the principal component of that repository, they contain well in excess of 100 million fingerprint records. And thousands of times a day, police officers across America, both in booking stations and in the field, submit fingerprint queries, and in many cases receive a response in less than 15 seconds. CJIS also processes the millions of NCIC queries submitted every day by state and local law enforcement agencies, and those are being answered in less than 1 second. And finally, I can't forget to mention the highly sophisticated technical exploitation and analytics carried out at our Huntsville, Alabama campuses at the Terrorist Explosive Device Analytics Center. So it's no wonder then that science and technology is the largest branch of the FBI, employing nearly 6,000 scientists and technologists across a very broad range of scientific disciplines. Well, with technology playing an ever-increasing role in our lives, it's the rare exception today when an investigation does not involve in some way or significantly underpinned by some technology. Even in the more traditional cases where physical evidence still plays a very critical role, today that evidence is exploited through the application of sophisticated forensic technologies in ways we could only dream about a few years ago. In fact, DNA science and greatly advanced biometric and algorithms have been reaching backward in time, in some cases decades, to link perpetrators to crimes and bring justice to victims. However, in almost every instance where the introduction of new technologies brings efficiencies and capabilities to our businesses and personal lives, it also brings vulnerabilities. The deployment of disruptive technologies like 5G and artificial intelligence hold enormous promise, but are also challenging national security and law enforcement organizations at all levels around the world. These challenges aren't only manifest in the need for new world-class technical and forensic tools in the use in our traditional mission, but they're also forcing us, like you, to recognize and mitigate our own digital exhaust, which we know is being constantly collected and analyzed by our adversaries. Similarly, issues such as supply chain integrity and vendor trust are now not only just problems for industry, but front and center as national security challenges. Concurrently, the capabilities of our adversaries have changed. What used to be the purview of nation states is now the routine venue for criminal enterprises. No longer bound by the physical world, these malign actors aggressively target your intellectual property, your supply chains and services, and can cause significant reputational damage, all without ever having to risk their physical presence at your facilities. Let me take a minute here to talk very briefly about how we view cybersecurity from the perspective of protecting our own networks and systems. And I think you can group our efforts roughly into three broad categories. Number one, knowing our data. Number two, increasing our visibility on the endpoints. And number three, more aggressively leveraging our ICAM systems. So you can't effectively protect what you don't understand. Identifying knowledge and knowing where your most sensitive data resides is a critical first step in designing any cybersecurity plan. And the risk associated with things like disconnected and unmanaged closet IT are greater than they've ever been. Granular visibility on the endpoints has now become every bit as important as viewing the perimeter. And with 5G and edge computing coming on very fast, like you, we are very aggressively working to increase our visibility on our endpoints. ICAM, identity credentialing access management, have also taken on a new level of importance, particularly in the national security space, where dynamic least privilege access is rapidly becoming the norm instead of the exception, especially in the FBI, where we're faced with multiple layers of legal requirements and privacy, civil liberty obligations. Our identity management attributes and authorizations must reside in authoritative systems which can react dynamically, changing depending on the changes to employee environments and behaviors. In essence, we're going from an old trust but verify to a never trust and always verify. So if there are any technology company executives that are new to the field with us this morning who don't recognize what I've been talking about as part of the zero trust model, I would encourage you to take some time to learn more about it. The good news is you don't have to be a super technical person to understand these concepts, but creating a zero trust model in your enterprise does require a basic understanding and commitment by all your key personnel, especially in your C-suites. The NSA put out a great paper on zero trust back in February. If you simply Google nsa.gov zero trust, there's a fantastic paper up there that will get you started very quickly, and I would encourage you to look at it. Before I move on, let me say just a real quick word about the cloud and how I think about the cloud. I love the term cloud smart as opposed to cloud first, because not everything is well suited for the cloud, particularly in the intelligence and law enforcement communities, where privacy, civil liberties, and other regulatory concerns may necessitate maintaining positive physical as well as logical control of certain data. It always makes me just a bit nervous when I hear people say the cloud is safer. Well, it certainly can be more secure, and very, very often cloud services can make it much more easily to secure your environment. But you still have to set up, maintain, and monitor your cloud architecture as part of your overall cybersecurity plan. You know, the cloud offers a lot of advantages and efficiencies, but it is most certainly not a fire and forget cybersecurity plan. All right, well, let me bounce back now to talk about data for a moment. It turns out these mountains of new data that we're creating also come with additional risk. If we fail to stay current with new data management and analytics technologies, we can quickly find ourselves unable to cope with the volume of the very data we seek to collect and analyze. Let me give you one quick practical example from a law enforcement perspective. During the Boston bombing investigation of 2013, the FBI had to ingest some 80,000 still videos and images. And in 2013, that task took us just over a year. 7 years later, in the aftermath of the January 6th events, we needed to quickly ingest more than double that volume of images and videos. Through the application of a very wide range of new technologies, we were able to process that data in less than 2 months. So the volume doubled, and the processing time was cut by 80%. How did we do that? Well, first, we became exponentially more efficient in ingesting video tips directly from the public. Next, we used advanced video analytics to identify and prioritize submitted items which had the highest probability of containing relevant images for us. Incidentally, this same technology allowed us to very quickly dismiss the many redundant and irrelevant submissions. We were able, even during the height of the pandemic, to efficiently distribute the review of those tips across thousands of FBI employees across all of the 56 field offices. New evidence tracking and auditing tools gave us the confidence to know exactly in what stage each piece of that evidence was at any point in the process. Unfortunately, during the Boston case, we unintentionally re-reviewed many pieces of the same evidence. And finally, our new biometric and biographic algorithms produce new investigative leads with far greater speed and accuracy, allowing investigators to proceed much faster. Basically, the technology allowed us to do a significantly larger task faster and more efficiently. And one can easily imagine the result had we not chosen to embrace those new technologies. Now, just as your business models demand that you remain at the top or the apex of the corporate curve of technology, our mission demands the same. And obviously, we leverage commercial partnerships, procuring state-of-the-art technologies and systems from companies like many of those represented here today. But we also leverage our strategic partnerships with industry, and when done correctly, both sides benefit greatly from these conversations. The more we know about your businesses, your vulnerabilities, your most vulnerable assets and systems, the faster we can identify and share tactical intelligence that you need to keep your enterprises safe. And although the FBI has a number of formal industry outreach programs, it's not some sophisticated technology or process that makes those relationships work. It's just trust. Trust that will protect your information, trust that will protect your reputation and your competitive advantages. And this trust only comes through familiarity and time. On our side, we receive the benefit of your real-world experience and knowledge that helps inform us to see further over the technological horizon, staying as close to you on that corporate curve as we can to help us position ourselves to better protect the national security in American businesses. And I'm very pleased to tell you that it's not just the FBI working to protect your companies. You will hear later today, and you will no doubt have seen for yourself, the entire U.S. government is redoubling its efforts to help keep America and its international partners leading in technology and safe from cyber threats. We've seen multiple new national security positions focused exclusively on tech. We have a new Deputy National Security Advisor for cybersecurity and emerging tech. We have a new Senior Director for Technology and National Security. And the Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy has been elevated to a cabinet-level position. And in February, the President signed a national security memorandum focusing in large part on STEM talent. We're trying very hard to coordinate our efforts across the entire USG, to intelligence communities and law enforcement partners, as well as our international partners, truly massing global resources in the cybersecurity fight. We're also partnering much more closely with our USG partners to increase our participation in technical standards bodies. 2 years ago, we stood up an Internet Governance Program Office to coordinate our participation in technical standards bodies. 2 years ago, we learned a lot over those 2 years, not only about substantial technical standards, but how that participation can increase our awareness of over-the-horizon technical developments and emerging policy issues. We recognize the value in investing in consistent participation in these groups. And today, the FBI proactively participates in groups such as Internet Governance Forum, IGF USA, ITU, 3GPP, ETSI, ICANN, IETF, and the list goes on and on. Our participation has created opportunities for our technical experts to create new relationship with your technical experts. So if your organization is not currently participating in the technical standards bodies, I would encourage you to explore that possibility, because I can tell you with absolute confidence that our national security adversaries are showing up to participate in US and international standards bodies in great numbers. Let me quickly pivot now to a couple of topics that you may not have expected me to talk about today, those being technical discipline and integrity in data analysis. I think it's important I touch on these issues, particularly today as we work to stem the erosion of trust between the public and law enforcement happening in many American cities. There's a monument out at Quantico that reads, "The most effective weapon against crime is cooperation. The efforts of all law enforcement agencies with the support and understanding of the American people." I absolutely think that's true, and I think perhaps it's even more true today regarding our use of technology and data analysis. I believe it's going to be absolutely critical to our collective future success in employing and deploying new technologies in law enforcement to maintain that public trust. Take facial recognition, for example. There's a tremendous amount of misunderstanding surrounding how that technology is being used by law enforcement. When used correctly by well-trained individuals who adhere to well-established standards, it has proven to be invaluable for law enforcement, helping forward investigations and bring victims justice. But when even one law enforcement agency misuses the technology, taking it beyond its legitimate limits, it erodes that public trust and negatively impacts us all. So we in law enforcement and government must ensure we remain disciplined and transparent, striving to always keep civil liberties and privacy of the people we serve in the front of our minds and firmly ingrained in our technology guiding policies. If we fail to do so, the people we protect will understandably move to limit our use of those technologies. We must also strive to be as rigorous as possible regarding the accurate and ethical analysis of data. We stand on the precipice of a whole new era of data analytics through the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. You know, the science fiction movie storylines of just a few years ago are already starting to emerge as reality in ways that we aggregate and analyze data. I can envision the day when AI-derived data may serve as the basis for a probable cause-based judicial warrant. And when that day arrives, we'll need to not only present that data, but we'll more importantly need to prove precisely how we derive that data. Unlike the tech industry, where protecting proprietary information and intellectual property reigns supreme, our AI and ML algorithms must remain transparent. And that'll include identifying any potential human bias that may influence outcomes. If you've not already done so, I would recommend that you download and read the recent National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence report. It speaks to these and many other important issues, similar issues, with which we're going to need to grapple moving forward in this space. And as tech executives, we have an obligation to ensure we're adhering to the highest standards of data science when we utilize these capabilities. Just earlier this week, in his remarks to the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence, the Secretary of Defense put it this way: responsible AI is the place where cutting-edge tech meets timeless values. You see, we don't believe that we need to choose between them, and we don't believe doing so would work. Our use of AI must reinforce our democratic values, protect our rights, ensure our safety, and defend our privacy, end quote. Well, I wholeheartedly agree with Secretary Austin. AI technology shouldn't be allowed to change our American core values. Rather, it's our national core values which should shape our development and responsible use of new technology. Unfortunately, there's one technology which has already begun to upend some of our constitutional values. And I'm talking, of course, about encryption. For over 200 years, we've trusted the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment to guide our thoughts and actions regarding the government's ability to access evidence. But through the application of encryption technology, we've already begun to see a shift in these core values, independently deciding to place digital evidence out of law enforcement's reach, even after they've fully satisfied the constitutional requirements of judicial warrants. And this is not just a US problem. Earlier this week in London, the Director General of MI5, Ken McCollum, speaking on the exact same subject, made the following statement about encryption technology. Encryption should not falsely be presented as binary, privacy or safety. The public needs tech companies to find solutions which both maintain users' privacy and support everyone's safety. That means lawful access on an exceptional warranted basis to the content of that tiny minority of people who are cynically using the tech platforms to harm the rest of us. So let me be absolutely clear. The FBI is not opposed to strong encryption. We aggressively support and recommend the use of very strong but responsibly managed encryption. However, communication service providers and smartphone device manufacturers are trying to convince us that we're asking them to create some kind of secret access, a magic key which will grant law enforcement unrestrained access to these communications. We have never advocated that the tech industry hand over any decryption capability to law enforcement. What we have very consistently asked for is for industry to design, implement, secure, and control for themselves the capability to decrypt information when presented with a lawful court order. We have never asked for direct access to information. Well, there's a lot of folks in the industry that would have people believe this can't be done securely, that you can't have strong privacy and security, while at the same time maintaining a lawful access capability. I'm telling you, this can be done. This is absolutely possible. All right, so that's a lot to take in, and I'm out of time. I hope you've detected I'm fairly passionate about and absolutely love my job. What the men and women of the FBI, and in particular the Science and Technology Branch, do to protect this country, often very quietly and behind the scenes, is humbling, and I'm very proud to be part of it. So thank you for having me this morning. Thank you for your partnerships, and I continue to look forward to working with you to protect your organizations and all Americans. Thank you.